75% of the way around the globe, on the verge of becoming the first woman to circumnavigate the Earth, she vanished. This is the story of Amelia Earhart's final, fateful flight. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're rediving into one of the 20th century's most enduring mysteries, the disappearance of Amelia Earhart. What really happened on that July day in 1937 over the vast, empty Pacific? Let's take a look. Amelia Earhart wasn't just a pilot, she was a global icon, a symbol of adventure, courage, and breaking boundaries. She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic, and by 1937, she was ready for her biggest challenge yet, a 29,000-mile journey around the world. Her co-pilot was the highly skilled navigator, Fred Noonan. They would be flying in a state-of-the-art twin-engine Lockheed Electra 10E. The journey began on May 21, 1937, from Oakland, California, heading east. For over a month, everything went almost perfectly. They crossed the Americas, the Atlantic, Africa, and Asia. The world watched, captivated. By late June, they had completed over 22,000 miles and arrived in Lae, New Guinea. Howland Island is incredibly small, just 1.5 miles long and half a mile wide. Finding it in the middle of the Pacific Ocean was a monumental navigational challenge, even for an expert like Noonan. To help them, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter, the Itasca, was stationed just offshore, tasked with providing radio and visual guidance. On July 2, 1937, at 10 a.m. local time, Earhart and Noonan took off from Lae. The plane was heavily loaded with fuel for the estimated 18-hour flight. For the first 7 hours, radio communications seemed normal. Earhart reported their altitude and speed, but as they flew through the night, the radio signals became sporadic and weak. The crew of the Itasca waited anxiously. As dawn broke on Howland Island, they began trying to contact the Electra. They heard Earhart's voice, but her transmissions were broken and she couldn't seem to hear their replies. Her voice sounded calm but concerned. She reported being cloudy and overcast. At 7:42 a.m., the Itasca picked up a now famous transmission. "We must be on you but cannot see you. But gas is running low, have been unable to reach you by radio. We are flying at 1,000 feet. The Itasca's radio operators tried desperately to get a fix on her position, but her signal was too brief. They sent up smoke signals from the ship's funnel, hoping she would see the thick black plume against the clouds, but there was no sign of the plane. At 8:43 a.m., the Itasca received one final chilling message from Earhart. She said, "We are on the line 157-337. We will repeat this message. We will repeat this on 6210 kilocycles. Wait." Then silence. Earhart, Noonan, and their Electra were gone. Immediately, one of the largest and most expensive search and rescue operations in American history was launched. The U.S. Navy and Coast Guard scoured 250,000 square miles of ocean. President Roosevelt himself authorized the search. For 16 days, ships and planes crisscrossed the area around Howland Island, but they found nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no sign of life. On July 19th, the official search was called off. Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan were declared lost at sea. But this is where the mystery truly begins. What happened in those final moments? The official and most widely accepted theory is the crash and sink theory. It posits that, running low on fuel and unable to find Howland Island, Earhart and Noonan simply ditched the plane in the Pacific Ocean. The heavy Electra would have sunk quickly, leaving no trace and taking both aviators with it. This theory is logical, simple, and explains the lack of evidence, but for many, it feels too simple. This brings us to the most compelling alternative, the Gardner Island hypothesis, now known as the Nikumaroro theory. Gardner Island, a tiny uninhabited atoll now called Nikumaroro, is about 350 miles southeast of Howland Island. It lies directly along the navigational line Earhart mentioned in her final transmission. The International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, or TIGAR, has championed this theory for decades. They argue that Earhart, realizing she couldn't find Howland, would have turned south to search for other islands along that line of position. Nikumaroro would have been her best bet. The theory suggests she made an emergency landing on the island's flat coral reef during low tide. What's the evidence? Well, for several days after the disappearance, faint radio distress calls were picked up by operators across the Pacific and even in the United States. Some believe these post-loss signals came from Earhart, using the plane's radio as long as the engines could run to power it during low tide. TIGAR has launched numerous expeditions to Nikumaroro. They found artifacts that could be connected to Earhart and Noonan. These include what appears to be a piece of plexiglass from an Electra window, remnants of a woman's shoe from the 1930s, and a jar that looks like a pre-war brand of freckle cream that Earhart was known to use. Perhaps the most tantalizing discovery was a partial skeleton found on the island in 1940 by a British colonial officer. The bones were initially measured and thought to be male, then lost. However, in 2018, a study using modern forensic techniques re-examined the original measurements and concluded that the bones were more likely to have belonged to a woman of European ancestry, of a height consistent with Amelia Earhart. While not definitive proof, it's a powerful piece of circumstantial evidence. The Nikumaroro theory paints a tragic picture. Earhart and Noonan surviving the crash, only to be stranded as castaways on a desolate island, eventually succumbing to injury, thirst, or starvation. Of course, there are other, more sensational theories. One popular story suggests Earhart and Noonan were on a secret spy mission for the US government, were captured by the Japanese, and died in captivity. Proponents of this theory point to unverified eyewitness accounts from islanders who claim to have seen a Western couple held prisoner. However, there is no official documentation or hard evidence to support this claim, and most mainstream historians dismiss it as a conspiracy theory. So what are we to believe? Did Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan crash and sink into the unforgiving Pacific, their plane lost forever in the deep? Or did they make a desperate landing on a remote island, surviving for days or even weeks before their story ended? The mystery is what keeps the legend alive. It's a testament to the human spirit of exploration and the risks that come with pushing boundaries. Amelia Earhart wanted to circle the globe, and in a way, she did. Her story has been told and retold in every corner of the world, making her a permanent fixture in our collective imagination. What do you think happened to Amelia Earhart? The crash and sink? The Nikumaroro castaway theory? Or something else entirely? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries.